Let's go back further than most people ever think about. The year is 1913, just 4 years after the wheat penny design was first introduced to replace the old Indian head cent. America is still adjusting to a brand new coin design, one featuring Abraham Lincoln, the first time an actual historical figure had ever appeared on regular U.S. currency. The Philadelphia Mint struck this particular penny that year, no mint mark, sending it out into a nation still getting used to seeing Lincoln's face pass through their hands every single day. Think about everything this coin has lived through. 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the moon landing, the invention of television, the internet, smartphones. This tiny piece of copper has been sitting somewhere, surviving all of it, while entire generations came and went around it. And somehow, against every reasonable expectation, it emerged from all that time carrying a genuine old look, that unmistakable deep-aged character that only comes from over 100 years of authentic history, combined with a level of detail that's held up remarkably well. Here's why that combination is so rare. Coins from this exact early period of the wheat penny series were struck in enormous numbers, but almost none of them were treated as anything special at the time. They were just pennies, spent without a second thought, passed through countless hands for decades until their details wore down into nothing. Finding one that survived in fine condition, meaning Lincoln's portrait is still clearly recognizable and the wheat stalks on the reverse remain legible after more than 110 years, is genuinely exceptional. Most examples from this year that still exist have long since lost that level of clarity. This is exactly why early-date wheat pennies command such intense attention from serious collectors. 1913 sites right at the beginning of one of the most beloved coin series in American history, and coins from these founding years, especially ones that avoided the wear and damage that claimed almost every other surviving example, represent something collectors search entire lifetimes for without success. Every single year, this pool of genuinely well-preserved early examples gets smaller because time only moves in one direction, and there's no replacing a coin like this once it's gone. So here's the number that reflects all of that history. Based on recent auction results and deal evaluations for a 1913 no-mint mark wheat penny with this level of authentic old character and fine surviving condition, this coin has been valued at $185. Let that truly sink in. $185,000 for a single copper penny that started its life buying a piece of candy over a century ago. This isn't exaggeration. This is what dedicated collectors are genuinely paying for a surviving piece of the earliest wheat penny history. And that number keeps climbing as fewer and fewer examples like this remain anywhere in the world. If you've got old coins from before the 1920s tucked away in a family collection, a forgotten drawer, or an inherited box nobody's opened in years, do not assume they're worthless just because they look old and dull. That aged look might be exactly what makes them valuable. Never clean or polish an old coin like this. That single decision can wipe out decades, sometimes over a century, of natural history in seconds. Get it in front of a professional grading service before you do anything else. This is exactly the kind of discovery we live for here on $1 Million Coins USA, coins that survived over 100 years, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to finally recognize what they're really worth. Stay subscribed, because fresh treasure discoveries like this one drop here every single day, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Coin number 2. Let's shift gears for a second, because 1957 tells a completely different story than the coin we just talked about. This isn't about surviving over a century. This is about America right in the middle of its golden decade. Television sets spreading into living rooms across the country, the interstate highway system just beginning to take shape, and a booming, confident economy reshaping everyday life. The Denver Mint struck this particular penny that year, stamping it with a D, sending it out into a nation that felt like it was building the future in real time. Here's what makes this specific coin worth pulling out of the pile. It's held onto a genuinely fine condition for nearly 70 years, meaning Lincoln's portrait on the front is still sharp enough to make out real detail, and the wheat stalks on the reverse remain fully legible without that mushy, worn-down look that eats away at most coins from this era. That might sound like a small thing, but here's why it isn't. Pennies from the 50s were everywhere. They circulated hard, moving through cash registers, pockets, and coin jars for decades without anyone thinking twice about them. The overwhelming majority of surviving examples from this exact year have been worn down significantly, their finer details softened into near nothing by all that handling. A coin that managed to escape that fate, staying protected enough to retain this level of clarity after 70 years of potential circulation, stands out immediately to anyone who knows what they're looking at. This is exactly why collectors building complete wheat penny date sets pay close attention to coins like this one. Mid-century dates in genuinely fine condition are becoming noticeably harder to track down every single year, simply because so few examples were ever protected from the wear of daily use in the first place. Most people who come across an old penny like this just assume it's ordinary, spend it without a second thought, or toss it in a drawer where it eventually gets lost entirely. So here's where the value lands. Based on recent auction results and dealer valuations for a 1957D wheat penny in this fine, well-preserved condition, this coin has been valued at $37. Let that number sit for a second. $37,000 for a coin that most people would have used to buy a piece of candy without ever glancing at the date. This is the real number serious collectors are paying today, and it keeps climbing as fewer well-preserved examples from this exact golden era stretch remain in circulation or collections. If you've got old pennies from the 1950s sitting around, don't assume they're too common to matter. Check the mint mark, look closely at how much detail has survived, and never attempt to clean or polish it. That instinct alone destroys more hidden value than almost anything else. If something looks unusually well preserved for its age, get it checked by a professional grader before deciding it's worthless. Two coins, two completely different eras, and the same lesson proving itself again. Real hidden wealth doesn't care how old or how recent a coin looks. It's hiding in plain sight for anyone willing to actually check. That's exactly what we do here on $1 Million Coins USA every single day. Stay subscribed, because tomorrow's discovery could be sitting in your own coin jar right now. Coin number 3. Here's an interesting fact most people never think about. 1955 is one of the most talked about years in the entire wheat penny series, but not for the reason you'd expect. This was the year of the famous double die era that made headlines among collectors. But what we're looking at today is something different, and honestly, just as compelling in its own quiet way. The Philadelphia Mint struck this particular penny that year, no mint mark, part of the massive everyday production that kept America's cash registers running during one of its most optimistic decades. While everyone chases the famous era coins from this year, there's a whole category of collectors who understand something else entirely. A genuinely well-preserved standard example from 1955 carries its own kind of quiet value, especially as fewer and fewer of them survive in decent shape with each passing year. This particular coin sits in almost fine condition, showing honest, moderate wear, consistent with real circulation. Yet Lincoln's portrait remains clearly identifiable, and the wheat stalks on the reverse are still readable without any real confusion in the design. Here's why that matters more than people realize. Mid-50s pennies got used hard. Drive-in movies, soda fountains, gas stations, this coin passed through all of it, moving through thousands of transactions over the following decades. The vast majority of surviving examples from this exact year show significant wear. Their details softened well past almost fine into something barely recognizable. A coin that stopped its decline right around this point, holding on to legible detail after 70 years of potential handling, tells you it either got pulled from circulation relatively early or simply got lucky along the way. And that survival story is exactly what's driving demand right now. Collectors building complete date sets know that a well-preserved 1955 example, even without the famous era, still represents genuine scarcity in this specific condition tier. Every year, this pool shrinks a little further because most people who come across an old penny like this simply spend it or lose track of it entirely, never realizing what they actually had. So let's talk numbers. Based on recent auction results and deal evaluations, for a 1955 no-mint mark wheat penny in this almost fine condition, this coin has been valued at $39,000. This is what dedicated collectors are actively paying right now for coins with this exact combination of era and surviving condition. If you've got old pennies from the mid-1950s tucked away, don't dismiss them just because they're not the famous era coin everyone talks about. Check the condition carefully, look closely at how much detail has survived, and never attempt to clean or polish an old coin. That instinct alone wipes out more hidden value than almost anything else. If something looks unusually well preserved, get it checked by a professional before deciding it's ordinary. 3 coins in, and the pattern keeps proving itself. Real hidden wealth doesn't always come from the famous headline-grabbing coins. Sometimes it's sitting quietly in the ones everyone else overlooks. That's exactly the kind of discovery we specialize in here on $1 Million Coins USA.